I say she's amazing because she's the founder of Nan McKay Connects, which is a media production company which is engaged in helping women over 50 bridge through the dreams to action. She's also the president of Nan McKay and Associates, and it's a multi-million-dollar company she founded in 1980. She was recently named the California Woman Business Owner of the Year. She has founded 6 companies over the years and has decided to share her blueprint to her entrepreneurial success. She's the author of the Gold in the Golden Years series, and she will also soon release a book, webinar, and a course. And a fun fact is that she has 2 buildings named after her in Minnesota. So let's give us she has a podcast called Trailblazers Impact, and her YouTube channel is Trailblazers Impact Interviews. So let's give a round of applause for our guest tonight, Nan McKay. Yay! Okay, come on, a big round of applause. We can do it, I can't hear you. There you go. Good evening, Nan. How are you doing tonight?
Just fine, Desiree, and thank you so much for inviting me.
You're sitting there so relaxed, like, oh my goodness. Well, I find, really particularly amazing is that, how what you've accomplished and how you're still going, because I think so many of the ladies that can relate to the fact of either transitioning, retiring, transitioning, or just making that change, but pivoting to, to their next life. And we're going to start with your story and your challenges and your victories and your secrets to success. So as a young person, did you visualize the life that you're living?
Probably not, because this is not where I envision myself. But as I go back and think about it, my mother actually was an entrepreneur because she had to do something. My father was killed in a car accident. We found that he had gambled our money away and we had nothing left. And she pulled herself up by her own bootstraps and started a business. And so I think back all those years and think, well, maybe this is where I was meant to be all along. Who knows?
Very interesting. So how many children were there? How many brothers and sisters?
3 of us. 3 of us.
So you watched what she did, and did that give you to inspire you to be an entrepreneur and inspire you to?
I didn't think it did at the time. It was just a way for her to make money, and I had never thought about it as something that would be my future. But when I think back, I think, she was really the role model all those years ago. So I have really pivoted twice. I pivoted when I was 38 years old, and I pivoted again just a few years ago, and that's many years later. So do you want me to tell you a little bit about what
absolutely
my journey has been?
Yes, it's story time.
Well, imagine yourself as a government employee for 17 years. I had a great career. I think I made a difference in lives because I worked for 3 different housing authorities. We worked in subsidized housing with low-income people. So I felt like I had made a difference, but I really felt like I had done everything I wanted to do. And I kept thinking, gosh, I would like to have a change. What else is there left for me to do? What else could I do? So I thought about the possibility of entrepreneurship. And you might think of government to entrepreneurship, but really running an agency is not much different from running a business, except that you have marketing, you have selling, and on the positive side, you have no politics, which I think is a real nice thing not to have to go through. So I started asking myself some questions. What would be the problem with it? What's my biggest fear? And my biggest fear, and it may be Barbara's as well, is, well, what can I do to make money? Am I going to make enough money that I can actually quit my job and move over here to something totally different and still be successful and make enough money to make the difference? My husband decided to do his own business at about the same point in time. So I was hoping, oh my gosh, at least I hope it goes, the ups and downs are not at the same time, because that would be a real problem. The second question that I had, and this may be one that you have as well, is, well, what kind of business should I start? What do I really know? And I thought about supervisory management because I had taken many, many courses. I'd supervised many people. And I thought, this is really something that I love, to create better managers. But I got some very good advice from someone who wrote a book called The Inventurers. And she said, and listen carefully, because I think this may be, if you're thinking of pivoting, maybe something you want to ask yourself and maybe take yourself in a direction. She said, change what you do, because maybe you're just tired of doing that, but do it in the same field where you are known. And that was the absolute fabulous advice, because the business that I started in 1980 now has over 4,000 employees. So this was a little business starting in the basement of my house. And so we'll talk more about that. But that, I think, made the difference. Is if I had gone into supervisory management training, which is kind of a, as she said, people are a dime a dozen on doing supervisory management training. There's nothing special about it. Instead, do training, but do it on something in your field. For me, it was housing regulations.
Wow. I mean, that's something that I think everybody should be writing down, because that's usually one of the biggest questions, and that's the area, it makes sense because that's the area you have expertise, that's easy for you, know enough about it. And like, you're right, many times it's not that we don't like our industry, we just don't like what we're doing it, how we're doing it, who we're doing it with, perhaps. So that makes a difference. So from that, you started. So was it difficult starting your business, and did you bootstrap it, or do you have investors, or how did you start it?
No, I did not have investors. On the finance side, I cashed out my pension plan. I had $10,000, and this is 1980. So I could not get a credit card in my own name. As a woman. So Jim signed for me and had to sign for me, even though he had nothing to do with the business. He still had to sign for me, which still makes me mad when I think about it. But at that time, I just simply crossed my fingers and jumped in. What really helped, though, and I've interviewed so many people, so many entrepreneurs, and they say something similar to this. So kind of think about the trail of this one and see how this might apply to you. I decided to train housing regulations. I wanted to train rather than manage. I decided, all right, I'm going to do a training company. So that's the difference. But I'm going to train housing program regulations. And I had written a training manual on a new housing program. So I decided, okay, if I've done that, I'm going to write a how to do it guide on the new program. And I'll write the training material. I did all that, and I started training seminars. And I just simply put my brochure out and said, here's something if you'd like to attend. And I scheduled several around the country. I'd love to have you. Now, at that point, I was 38. I had 2 kids, 10 and 8, and it was 1980. So the thing that made the difference right away, and I think is the thing that really got the whole business off its feet, is that HUD, housing authorities, that's where the regulations come from. So HUD released an RFP, a request for proposal for training on a new housing inspection program. And the great part of this is they bid it. The only time that I know of they have ever done this, they bid it on qualifications, not money, which is so different. Now, my agency, when I was running it, had been selected as one of the 13 outstanding housing authorities in the country. So HUD knew me, and they knew what I had done, and they knew what I knew. So I was well known in the industry because I also participated in a lot of organizations. So HUD awarded 4 contracts, and I came in. Here's this little kid. I always talk about myself, even though I was living in Minnesota at the time, as this little kid from Peoria, because I don't think I'm any different today. I'm still the little kid from Peoria. And I thought, oh my God, I got awarded number 2 of the contracts. So the 4 contracts, I came in number 2. And all of the rest of them were these big East Coast fancy companies that had all these credentials and been in business a long time. And here comes the little kid from Peoria, and she got number 2. So I was like, yes, yes, see, I can do this. I can't get a dang credit card, but I can win number 2 on the contract. So I did mandatory training on inspections with a lot of code inspectors in the class. And boy, you talk about trial by fire. Oh my God, here I am. I'm blonde, bleach blonde, 38. I wore dresses. I haven't worn a dress for a long time, but I wore dresses. I really did not look the part. And the mandatory training for the code inspectors, they sat there like this and looked at me like, all right, HUD says I have to be here, but I don't have to like it, and I don't have to like you. And I hardly even want to pay attention to you. So all of a sudden, I had to find creative ways to make this training fun and interesting, and yet train the material I was hired to train and win them over. And so that was a great trial by fire, but it was a great experience because I had no choice. If I was going to succeed, I had to perform in a different way than I ever thought I was going to have to perform. Laptops and computers and PowerPoints hadn't even been invented at that time. Now, can you imagine PowerPoint not even being invented? So how do you train all this material and remember it all if you don't have any guide or anything to go by? So you know what I did? I pre-wrote 10 flip charts. Now, I don't mean 10 pages. I mean 10 big flip charts. I put them in 2 big cases, and I flew all over the country, even to Puerto Rico, training all of this material. I hired some friends who worked the program as trainers. So that's just what we did. We went out there and we said, let's gut it out, what I call gut it out. Let's just gut it out and do it. So in addition, I thought, I've got to get these people in the right mood, because I thought, from this to being receptive to what I was saying, I had to get them into a good mood. So I also traveled with this absolutely huge case. And in the case, I had a record player. Now, do any of you remember this, the real record player, where you had the needle
Yes.
came out? Okay, this was a
my
record
son
player.
still have
Yes,
one.
CDs had not been invented. I mean, we weren't back as far as 45s and 78s, but we were 33s, and 33 records I played before the seminar, at breaks and lunch. And I think I just took them totally off guard. I think they were like, this is a HUD training? I'm going to learn inspections. She doesn't look like I expected her to look. And this is kind of weird, but okay, well, let's see how it goes. And that is exactly what I did. Let's see how it goes. So
How did it go?
how did it go? Really, it went pretty darn well. From the point of view that people got in the mood, you know how you play your music in between, and how it kind of makes you feel out of yourself and lively, and you're just more receptive. And that's what happened. So when I talked, I learned to talk in a language that I guess was in an entertaining way. And I think back, and especially now as I'm into another pivot, and I'm into marketing, and I'm into all of these things that I'm learning about branding and those kinds of things that I didn't even think about back then. I think maybe what I did was create my own brand, because people from that point on said, I went to this training and it was very different, but boy, did we learn a lot. And I think maybe, if she does anything else, I want to, let's go again. And that started everything. And I started the company, when I think about challenges, because I know you asked me that question, what challenges did you have? And I thought, oh my God, what challenges did I not have? But I started Nan McKay and Associates in 1980 in the basement of my house. And I was on the phone scheduling hotels and meals for the seminars, I was up at 5. I was often in my nightgown until noon working. I learned how to register people for the classes. I wrote courses. I wrote books. I've published, not counting this new one that I've done, 22 books that we used in our training. I wrote training materials, and I traveled 40 weeks a year. Now, I'm talking about from Sunday morning until Friday night, pretty much 40 weeks a year, all year long. So that's a challenge, but all by itself. I mean, when you're gone all the time and you're trying to manage your business at home, and yet everybody wants you out there in the beginning. So that's kind of how that went. And that's how I got
And you
started.
had children, you had children at home, correct? Yes, you had
Yes, I
children.
did have children at home, right. And I was thinking about this talk and I thought, maybe some of these people, they're probably not as old as I am, but maybe they remember some of these things. So I thought, I remembered back to equipment. When in 1980, when you think about running seminars, your marketing, we typed out 1,000 plus labels every time we did a mailing on does anybody remember a Selectric typewriter? Selectric, that it was electric. I thought that was pretty good. I thought it was really kind of hot stuff, even having an electric typewriter. We did our marketing and our flyers, our letters on that same typewriter. And personal computers had just come out and they were brand new. Now think about this, because I looked up, when did the first personal computer come out? It came out in 1976. We had mainframes part of that, but personal computer came out in 1976, and this was 1980. So we're only talking 4 years. I just started the business, so it was expensive to think about getting a computer. So I had a relative that worked at a big company in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and he was able to get an employee discount. So he got me a computer with his employee discount. It was an Apple II computer. Anybody remember those?
No.
Apple II? Yeah.
Okay, sure.
So we had no internet, no Microsoft Windows, no Word, no PowerPoint, no cell phones, no projectors. So it was like, wow. When we got a computer, that was big. So we printed our labels on the computer. That was huge. I went at that point, from flip charts to transparencies. Anybody remember transparencies, where you typed it out and put it on an overhead projector? I had a lot of transparencies. So remember, if I have 2 full flip charts all written, 10 flip charts in 2 cases, how many transparencies I had. So laptops then were invented, and finally we went to PowerPoints. So I would say that it was a learning curve, and we certainly had some mistakes along the way. Just when I was learning to use the computer. Now you may remember this, back when you had those first Apple II computers, do you remember what happened when you went Control-Alt-Delete? What happened? Vicki, you're saying yes. What happened when you went Control-Alt-Delete?
Yeah, it would just it would shut you down.
And you lost
everything. Yeah, it didn't automatically save. You were just out of luck.
You lost it all. I had a book, a full book, 75% written. And somehow, I have no idea, I did a Control-Alt-Delete and the whole book was gone. The book was gone. And you're sitting there like, no, this can't happen. That book isn't gone. Where's my book? My book has to be somewhere. So, you have all these things that happen to you when you are doing your life as a business owner, but it's stuff that makes you who you are today. I think of what other challenges I have, and I think one of my biggest challenges was, anybody ever done a computer company? I started you're saying yes. I started a computer company. I'm pointing to you up there. I'm sorry. And doesn't every programmer think they are the best? I went through a number of programmers, and they would look at that somebody else's code, the last person's code, and go, oh, that's spaghetti code. We can't use that. We've got to start all over again. So I think having a software company, when I think back for all the companies that I started, that was certainly one of the most challenging thing that I think I ever did. HUD put out requirements for the software, and they would change the requirements with very little time in between to make the corrections. And you either met the deadline that they had, or you put out a program with bugs. And I always met the deadline, but I did sometimes have some bugs. And then I think the other thing that was a big challenge in software is, and you made me remember some of this, the programs were in DOS. And when we had to go to Windows, you'd think we were killing people. They just hated the thought of having to go to Windows. They liked their program the way it was. They did not want to change it. And so I think that those are the kinds of challenges that you constantly have to figure you're going to have. No matter what you do, you're going to have some challenges. And the hard part is just, how do you get beyond it? How do you get through it? How do you put one foot in front of the other and march on? And that is the true test, I think, of the entrepreneur. The person who can say, all right, I've walked through my fire. I've cried my tears. I've yelled and screamed. But the problem is there's still tomorrow. And if I'm going to be there tomorrow, I've got to figure out how to get through today, how to put it behind me, and how to shut the door and say, I'm going to continue on. And that's what an entrepreneur does. An entrepreneur fights through whatever they have to fight through to get to the place on the other side. And if you ask an entrepreneur, one that is a true entrepreneur in your heart, they're an entrepreneur, the answer is yes. The answer is yes, it was worth it. It's always better worth it looking back than it is when you're in the middle of it. But the point is that you can put one foot in front of the other. And when you're an entrepreneur with that spirit, you will put one foot in front of the other. And that's at that point what I did. What else would you like to know?
Okay, so a couple of questions. You talked about your different businesses, and then we start with your one that you started in 1980. Why did you start, and how did you start the other businesses? Like, why did you start other businesses when you had the ones you had? And just briefly, because I do want to go into your some of your other tips and your secrets to success and things like that. But
Probably
just like, and I say that because some of the women are doing multiple businesses, and my encouragement is to not to spread yourself too thin until you get one of them really up and going. And so, you know,
probably for the dumbest reason in the world. And I did it over and over again. So, I mean, what do they say? The road to insanity or something like that.
The definition is doing the same thing with different results.
Well, I'll tell you the reason I did. You know, the business, the Nan McKay Associates, the one that has the 4,000 employees today, was always doing well for the most part. I mean, we had our ups and downs, and a few times where I said to myself, oh man, can we keep on going on? But for the most part was doing well. But I kept thinking, what happens if HUD goes down? All my eggs are in the HUD basket. Everything that I'm doing is revolving around HUD being in existence and having the regulations and the programs. So I thought, well, that's why I started the software company. I thought, well, I'll have a little adjunct over here. It's still HUD, but people are having to fill out this great big long form and they hate it. And nobody has personal computers for the most part yet in housing authorities. It was still all just the big mainframes. So I thought, well, I'll make them just a little program. So I did that for that reason. But when I look at the others, I did one called Designer Outlet. Now you're really going to think I have lost it when you hear this one. This was a catalog program, but I kept thinking, okay, what do we do in our business? Well, we do a lot of mailings. We do a lot of marketing in the sense of brochures and all that stuff. We take orders and that we register people. So I should be able to put out a catalog. This is before all these catalogs that you see today came out, because now you get tons of catalogs, 4 a day or something, clothes and all kinds of things. Well, we didn't back then. This is in the early 90s. So I decided to make a catalog called Designer Outlet. And I had clothes and jewelry, and I had toys, and I had all kinds of things. I went up to the mart up in Los Angeles and bought a variety of things. I had things made. I had clothes manufactured. I don't know. I'm crazy because it did not do well. And you know why? Because I only had money enough to put out one catalog. I didn't realize you had to put them out again and again and again. So I had this gorgeous catalog with professional photography, the whole thing. And I put it out and I thought, everyone will want everything in here. It's so great. But I only had the money for one. And the reality was that's not the way it works. But why didn't somebody tell me that in the beginning? I just didn't ask the right questions. So I guess that says, you really need to do some research if you're going to open a business. And you really need to think about, is there a market for this? What's it all about? When I went from seminars way over here to a clothing and jewelry catalog, it was not a good idea. I actually had to take out a mortgage on my house of $100,000 to pay off my bills on that. But I paid it, and I kept doing Nan McKay and Associates, and it's still going today and has more than 4,000 employees. So I diverted, I pivoted, and I shouldn't have. And I did it several times. So I think I've learned a lot from all of that over all these years. And that's really why I'm doing what I'm doing today.
So a lot of these ladies are thinking about pivoting. Okay, so if they're thinking about pivoting, then what are some of the things you mentioned? They should do some research. They should ask questions. What are some of the other things they should take in consideration? Obviously, have enough funding to be able to, to have a runway, have enough funding for a period of time to be able to continue doing it, because it doesn't happen on the first shot or the first month or even sometimes the first year. What should they be thinking about?
Well, a couple of things. One is I have something, an ebook that I would love to be able to give to you. It's called 10 Tips to Pivot to Entrepreneurship. And I've thought about what are the most important 10 things that I could give people. So pivoting, talking about why do you want to pivot? We're going through 10 things to think about as you're going into pivoting. And I give you some examples and I give you some worksheets to fill out. I think that the pivoting is important to think about because it's important to think about what you really in your heart want to do. And I think we sometimes, at least I did, go through, well, what do I really know that somebody else would want to know? What do I really know, or what do other people want that I could give them? Gosh, I've done all these things for all these years, but I'm in a different space now. Do they want to know how to set up a podcast business? I could tell them that. Do they want to know how to get on YouTube? I could tell them that. And I started thinking, my life has been entrepreneur. I mean, from 1980 on, I was an entrepreneur. I've learned a lot, and I think I can help people. Now, the hard part on a business when you're trying to do something is think about who is my avatar. And I want you to really think hard about this and write this down because it's one of the most important things to go through. Your avatar is your ideal customer. It's really important to know what you want to do as a business and then figure out who is your ideal customer. And that's called your avatar. You can put a name on the person if you want. And it's hard. It was really hard for me to do that. It took me probably 6 months to really get down to the point of who I really wanted to serve. And I finally realized that I shouldn't be looking at everybody as my market. And I always hate to narrow the market, because I think if I narrow the market, then maybe I won't make as many sales. But what I've learned is that no, you are better off to niche it. You're better off to be very clear about who your avatar is. And that avatar is then who you write to, you point to, you market to, you talk to. That's your ideal customer. Now, for me, who is it? I finally decided it's not the world, even though I kind of wanted it to be. It's a woman over 50 who wants to pivot from either a career where maybe she's sick and tired of the gender bias, the age bias, the kind of bias that you can get from in a career, especially with a corporation today. Or maybe they're retired and they're thinking, I'm tired of this. I want to do something else. And they turn to maybe, and they say that women who are over 50, their biggest fear is, am I going to have enough money when I get older? So how about pivoting to entrepreneurship, where you create your own gold? You are the person who's responsible for the money, not for other people. You've been making other people money for years if you're in the corporate world. How about making it for yourself? And how do you do that? And that became the pivoting point for me, for my challenge to take all these women who I interview on my podcast and start focusing on my avatar. Start focusing on women who have pivoted, who are over 50, to entrepreneurship. And what are their secrets? And what have they done to be successful? And I have interviewed over 100 women. And so I took excerpts from the women as well and put them throughout my book to talk about. I've written a book called Gold in the Golden Years, and how to launch a business and get your own gold that you love. And so I have tried to target into that area to say, these are the people that I particularly want to work with, that I particularly want to serve. And that, coming to that realization, helped me tremendously. So I'd like to offer you a couple of things. One is the 10 tips you can certainly have. I can give you that. If you want to do, I do both podcast and YouTube. Go on trailblazersimpact.com and you'll see the full page write-up that I do for my guests. And so if you're interested in that, I can do that for you. It's one of your best free marketing pieces you will ever have in your entire life. But I can do that. And then I have my book, which should be out in about 2.5 months. It's at the publishers right now. And I'm going on and going to be doing a webinar, and I'm going to be doing a mastermind course on that topic, all on the same topic, because I finally figured out, well, I've been through it and I'm old and I'm still kicking, I'm still doing it. And I'm probably older than most of you. Do you want to know how old I am?
You want to tell us?
Old. So if I can do it, so can you. So get that passion, because I think in a retirement, we go through stages. I don't know if you've been through this yet, but I certainly did. I went through stages. Your first stage of retirement is you got your cup of coffee. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. You're sitting out and back outside and you're going, This is the life. I don't have to go to work anymore. I'm going to do this I can do this every morning if I want to do it. That's your first stage of retirement. If you're an entrepreneur, that lasts about 2 weeks. You're like, this coffee doesn't even taste good anymore. You know, I got to be doing something. And then you go through the next stage of retirement. I think the next stage is volunteerism, golf, that kind of stuff that you go through. Organizations, a lot of organizations, but ones that don't necessarily mean a lot. It's just something to do. And I think that's another stage of retirement. And then finally, after you've had your cup of coffee for 2 weeks, you've gone through this other stage. To me, there's a third stage. And the third stage is, I've got to do something that makes a difference. I got to do something that is not just getting up and putting one foot in front of the other and having my coffee in the morning, but I care about what's happening in the world today. I care about the women that are trying to make it. And when you look at what the pandemic has done to women in general and the strides that they have made in the past and where the concern that they have today, do you know, I read that 90% of the new hires today are men because people feel sorry for them during the pandemic. And I think, wait a minute, what happens to all these strides that we made and how hard we had to fight to get the credit card in our own name? And now we're saying that we're not even at the top of the list anymore. Or people are saying, well, I'm going to stay home and take care of my children. That's all fine, but we don't want to turn back the hands of time. We don't want to turn back the clock with all the victories that we have had, with all the milestones that we have finally made. So if you want to make that difference, you've got to think in your life about what is it you really want out of life. You know, I need to be enthused and I need to care about what I do. And whether you're teaching somebody to play golf and that's your business, that's fine. Or whatever your passion happens to be. Once you get over 50, you have the permission to find your own passion, to follow your own dream, to do what makes a difference, whatever that is to you. And it won't be the same for you as it is for everyone else. But whatever it is for you, now's the time to do it. Because you don't know how much longer you've got. You don't know what the next day is going to hold. You don't know if you get on the plane like I did today, you know, and everybody's got their mask on, but are you safe? You don't know. So if not now, when? You know, I think that's an important statement. If not now, when? Because you haven't got that much more time to sit back and say, well, it's something I'm thinking about. Well, maybe I should. Make a plan and work your plan. Because tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day until the end of time. And as we get older, that end of time is coming up. You know, like my father-in-law used to say, I can see farther behind than I can ahead. Well, I'm one of those people. And I'm saying to myself, if I'm going to do something I care about, something that will make a difference, even if it's only to me, it'll make a difference, I better do it now. Now's the time to do it. Make your dream come true. Make your minutes count. Make your life be what you really want it to be. I have two favorite songs that have always been my favorite songs for a long time. One is Helen Reddy, I am woman, hear me roar. Oh yeah, that's me. And the other one that has been my favorite since probably I've been about 10 or 11 years old is Climb Every Mountain, Ford Every Stream. follow every rainbow until you find your dream. Find your dream. Do what you love. Do what you want and make that difference.
Those are definitely some secrets to success, and, encapsulating that as far as, finding your passion, follow your dream, do the hard work that's involved, find your niche. We were speaking to that all the time, and just go and do it. And one of the things that also, Nan, that I admired about you is that be willing to invest in the training and the learning that's required for your new passion. Because I really always congratulated you on not once, but twice coming out here to Rancho Santa Fe and taking the Power of Seven to learn, at the podcast and the videos and things of that type. And I remember you saying, well, I'm not computer literate. And that's for all the ladies that are saying, well, I can't do this, or I can't do that, or I can't keep my lights on. Right
yes,
now.
you can.
I mean, and it's really, and so there's no excuses. I guess you just don't, one of those is that don't, take any excuses. Like you said, do what you have to do, go where you have to go, learn what you have to learn, invest what you have to invest to be able to do that, and acknowledge that and to actually do it, because you have actually, shown it, you've done it.
Well, and if you don't do it, you just could run out of time. And I will tell you how old I am. I'm 79. I'll be 80 next year. And that is a point where I've just said, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm working from 6 in the morning until 6 at night. And I work pretty much 6 or 7 days a week. And I love it. I'm doing what I want to do. So do what you want to do, because there's nothing you can't learn. I mean, social media tests me beyond belief. Learning social media and having the time to get onto social media. And I'm not going to say what I had for dinner. I will not do that on social media. But you just have to do what it takes to do. Clubhouse is a new thing. I've been on it once. I'm getting my courage together to get on it again. And I have those same feelings. I never have really thought I had the imposter syndrome, but I do have those feelings, those little things that come up that say, ooh, what do you have to say? What are you going to answer if they ask you a question you can't answer? What do you have to offer? I still have those things that come up. And I think we just have to say, stop it. Stop it. I've gotten this far. I may not be perfect. I may not be 100% right. I may take me longer to figure out exactly what a ClickFunnels is and exactly what a lead magnet is, and then how to put them all together, and then how to then change from MailChimp to ConvertKit to Keep and be able to transfer it all together. But by God, I'm going to learn it. And I'm doing it, and it is not going to get me down. I will do it, and I will do it well. I will do it better than you can even imagine.
And that is exactly the attitude that has gotten you.
I am woman. Hear me roar.
How many ladies? Okay, so ladies, any questions you have, we're going to open it up for questions, for ideas, for comments, for feedback. I mean, how many ladies actually have that out? How many I am women do we have in the audience tonight? Raise your hand. If you're I am woman, if you're that woman, and no matter what it's going to take, come on, let's see it. Let's raise your hand.
I loved it, Desiree. I loved it. When she was saying about her theme song, my theme song is Living My Life Like It's Golden by Jill Scott. So I love that song. I'll be 60 this year. So you got me only by about maybe a couple of years. I'll be 60, and I always tell people I will never retire. I am going to refire and live my life on purpose with passion so that I can bless others and for the glory of God. That's it. So
that's fantastic.
Not retire and refire is actually in my book.
You there?
Fantastic. That's the attitude.
Well, Nan, I just want to say that was very inspiring and uplifting, and thank you. And, my mentor is Bob Proctor, and he's 87. And so to, be living a full life, there's nothing more exciting, and you're the evidence and the example and the inspiration. And thank you for that, because there are those days where, whether it's gender or age, we wonder, is it still in us?
We do. And, I think I have my little vanities, idiosyncrasies. I don't know what you call them. One of the things that was really bothering me is that on my eyelids, it seemed like they were getting creepy, or you could pinch the skin, and I go to put on my eye makeup and I think, oh my God, look at this. What is this? So I thought, now I have never done anything like this in my life. I've not had any cutting up of my face other than skin cancer that I have on my face every once in a while. But I thought, I'm going to get my eyes done. So I went in and they told me 2 or 3 people said, okay, if you go to the doctor, here's what you have to do if you want to get paid by Medicare. You have to have your eyelid has to be down this far, has to cover half your pupil. So I went in to the doctor and I had my eyes at half mast, and I kept them at half mast the whole time. I thought, all right, see this? Half. Pupil is half covered. Medicare, right? I will tell you a secret. Every doctor has a different standard. I don't care what that is that they say. One says this, one says your eyebrow has to be so. This one said, what was it? My eyelid had to touch my eyelashes or something like that. So I paid my $3,500 for it and did it. But it's still got the mark. I can't put on eyeshadow up here right now, but it's been about a month, and I'm happy with it. So that's what you have to just say. If you're happy with it and you feel good about it,
That's it. Yeah.
then do it. Who cares? Because my hair has not gotten gray yet, and that will happen eventually. I'm starting to see it around here, right around here.
Amazing.
But you just have to say to yourself, do what you want to do. If you want to look, if it's important to you to look a little bit younger, and that you have something that you think you want to do to make yourself feel better, then I say, dang it, you've earned it. You've earned those years. I've paid my dues. I have paid my dues. And therefore, if I'm going to get my eyes done, I'm going to get my eyes done. I'm not going to do the rest of it because it's just too dang expensive. But
Well, I was thinking you have very pretty eyes, so it's working for you.
Yeah.
well, thank you after all I've been through with it.
Great. The thing is that, she makes it sound so easy, because she's thriving and she's, enjoying what she's doing. But, there has got to be some things that you wonder, like who's wondering how to pivot? Who's going to pivot next? Who's ready to pivot? Who needs to pivot?
I was
Mary.
going to say, oh,
Yes. Mhm.
I was just going to say, I really loved where you talked about the phases of retirement, because my sister and I have been talking about it. I've been retired for 2 years and she just retired. And I was like, that's spot on. It is like when the first thing you think, well, I can get up when I want, and it's great. And then all of a sudden you get into the volunteerism. It was exactly what I ended up doing. I joined so many different things. And now I'm finally at the point where I feel like I'm walking toward my passion, which is the podcast. And I'm still working out the kinks of that. But knowing that I got there after 2 years. And as I'm sharing with my sister, because she's like super frustrated. And I'm just like, will you give it time? So I was so glad that you said that about the phases of retirement. And I wanted to say, for almost 80, girl, you are phenomenal.
Oh, yes, yes,
Phenomenal.
definitely.
Well, you know, I just say, hey, it is what it is.
Mhm.
It is what it is, one way or the other. I guess, you know, you get old enough too, you start saying to yourself, you don't care as much,
Yes,
you know, what people think or
yes,
say.
yes.
It's sort of like, honey, if you don't like it, go down the street. You don't have to be here. It's okay. I don't need you. You know, you sort of get that way.
You do.
And
You
not in
do.
a mean way. I don't mean that, but just like,
Exactly.
if you think you have something to criticize, then you stand in these shoes, honey, because I've been there, and these shoes are well worn
Mhm.
and experienced. And when you get to that point, and then you want to talk trash to me, go ahead. But until that point, back off. I
Oh,
say what I think. How many of you have done the DISC profile? Anybody done the DISC profile? This
Oh,
yeah.
DISC profile? Oh, you
Mhm.
should do that. Really, it is very interesting. It's a behavioral style profile. Well, on the behavioral style, I've taken it, I think 12 times, because I never liked the outcome. And I kept thinking, no, if I take it again, it will be different. So it never is. I'm what's called a high D, which is, now I hope this does not surprise you, dominant. High D is a dominant personality type. Yeah, I probably am. And I is influence others because I'm talkative. And my steadiness is way down here. And my compliance is also way down here. So that's your profile on the DISC profile. So it's interesting to find out kind of who you are in a sense of your behavioral style. What do you prefer? What do you not prefer? How do you prefer to be talked to? Do you like direct conversation, or would you rather somebody would, to me, fluff it up a little bit and walk around the barn a little bit on it? I'm a very direct person. You know, you have something to say to me, let's talk about it. Say it. Don't go off over here and have to give me a big story around and around and around. If you got a problem with me, tell me. Let's work it out. Let's talk about it. So think about yourself. How do you feel about how you interact with people? And the insight that you get from these tools, whether it's that or there's Myers-Briggs and there's all these different tools that people have out there. But I think it's good to know yourself, to feel, because then you can start feeling comfortable in your own skin, and you know your own foibles, because you know that a strength overused becomes a weakness. For instance, assertiveness, which I have no problem with, assertiveness is a strength. But if I get too assertive, then and overuse my strength, it can turn into be viewed as aggressive. And that's where you look at your strengths and you say, what are my strengths? And when do I overuse those? And if I overuse them, they turn into a weakness. And that knowing these things about yourself is really important, because if you are what's called a high C, where you're conscientious and compliant, and that's your main focus, for instance. So if that's the case, that's a strength in that you are very good at data, you're very good at quality control, you're very good at analysis, you're very good at compliance, you know, you have lots of strengths in those areas. But if you overuse that strength, then you overanalyze and your strength turns into a weakness, because you get lost in the facts and you have trouble making a decision. So those are the kinds of things that I think are important to know yourself, because that when you're trying to say, live your dream and be happy, you have to really think about who you are and what makes you happy and what makes you sing in the morning, what makes you feel good, what makes you want to do more. And it's not the same for every person. So I think it's important to kind of analyze who you are, where you've been, where you want to go, and what will make you happy.
Thank you so much, Nan. Let's give her a big round of applause, ladies. Come on, let's thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. That's definitely.